All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto nerds of all ages. You know who I am. I'm the real Monty Allen, and I am your crypto nerd. And welcome to AlgoFest 2021.
And I'm Cooper Daniels from the Recoup, and we're here today with Keli Callaghan, the head of marketing from Algorand. Welcome, Keli.
Welcome.
Hello, both of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I guess we'll just dive right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Algorand, and yeah.
Give us the backstory.
Sure. What's the backstory? So let's see. I've spent my career in technology, SaaS-based platforms, focused on community engagement, marketing, go-to-market with some big partners. Prior to joining Algorand, I spent 5 years in the media and entertainment industry. I worked at Avid, another MIT technology company here locally in Boston. And before that, a lot of different industries, from railroad to retail to e-com and beyond. Telecom, I was in that space for a long time. The Algorand opportunity came up very, very early, and it was something I couldn't pass up. I've been here for over 3 years now. When I first got here, I was handed Silvio Micali's 72-page white paper, and it was like, here, let's do marketing off this. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dear God, this is 72 pages of math and economics. Oh boy, here we go. And so I think, Algorand and the industry have come a long way since then. But no, I had not worked in crypto prior to that. I have held Bitcoin for some amount of time before that. So I'm aware of, Bitcoin and Ethereum coming into this, but it wasn't my main focus. And yeah, we've built out a team that has come from a variety of industries and technology groups, and we're just really driving adoption and decentralizing Algorand and creating and building the best tech that can be. And it's been quite a ride so far, and I think we're only just beginning.
Nice,
amazing.
What excites you the most about Algorand?
I think it's that it's so early, and looking at all the companies that are doing amazing things, individuals on Algorand. If you look at what the tech opens up from an opportunity perspective, democratizing access to different, this is the same for a lot of different blockchain applications. I think with Algorand, we have such an awesome community of people who are really developing like smart, thoughtful things. We've got enterprises that are really thinking about this from a long-term perspective, not just, okay, we're going to tokenize this, make a lot of money, and then we're out, right? Like they're really thinking about how it changes their business model, or changes how they serve customers, or how they, do global remittances, or how they really have an impact on the efficiencies of their business models. So I think, the early stuff that we've seen is super exciting, and the best is yet to come. But it's real substance, and it's long-term vision with stuff that's being built on Algorand. I think, and that's probably one. I just get excited when I see people using the tech, but then the other part is just, what the product team, the tech teams, our engineering teams are doing here at Algorand in terms of, increasing speeds, creating really stable, solid tech, making it easier for developers to build on Algorand, deploy apps. I think just sort of those general lower barriers to entry and usage, right? If you look at it from a building perspective, or if you look at it from a deploying, or the cost, or how fast it can go, I think that's all super exciting too.
Cool.
Yeah, very much.
And
so.
You're the head of marketing, obviously. So do you have a specific approach to marketing, or, an idea on how to possibly reach retail investors in a certain way, or,
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Our focus here has been on more of the enterprise adoption, right? Some of these organizations that are disrupting their business models, or taking legacy infrastructure and modernizing it with blockchain. So that's been more of our focus here at Algorand the Inc. Not to be confused with Algorand the Foundation, where I do not work, right? We've got another group at the Algorand Foundation that's responsible for the distribution of the tokens, the token economics, the long-term monetary supply. They have the economists over there that work on all these things, distributing algos to the community that's building some of these component pieces. So in terms of like retail, I think it's an interesting thing because, that's not necessarily focused because that's not really, we're working on blockchain adoption, right? What company can like use blockchain to disrupt their space? And so that's who we spend a lot of our time talking to and working with, whether that's a central bank or whether that's a traditional financial institution or a DeFi solution or like a startup that's trying to do a new something in DeFi that fits an old need or that corrects an old need. So the term retail gets a little nuanced, but.
So Algorand, the technology company, is really focused on business to business or business to government relationships. So are there plans to market those businesses directly and we just don't see it because we're the retail consumer? Or are there also additional plans for any joint marketing with any of these other entities?
Yeah, so we share quite a bit about what organizations are doing on Algorand. If you look at some of my favorites, like the team over at MA Pay that's doing 800 million in healthcare payments for Bermuda. That's a really like monumental shift in the way that a national project is really grasping blockchain and what that makes possible, right? So that's a group that we've been working with. We have a business solutions team here that works with architecting a lot of those projects out or helping and assisting like where that makes sense and is helpful. In other national projects, you've got you've got CI that's tied in. There's some Italian government involved in CI.
I had never heard that pronounced before. I didn't realize it was pronounced CI.
Yeah. Okay. Well, or you could say SIAE.
That's what I've done.
What I've said. Yeah.
You could also, say out the entire word, but CI.
Got it.
And they have the Society of. Oh, I'm gonna mess it up. I shouldn't try.
Oh
Erase
yeah,
that.
I jokingly tried to pronounce it. I forget the Society. Whatever.
Yeah, CI. But that's another project with national roots with the Italian government, and just making sure that those 4.5 million NFTs and how they're changing the way that rights and royalties like pass through and get paid out. Right, that's really substantial. You've got a vaccine passport down in Colombia and Peru that's being built on Algorand. So, there's that. Those are some of the national projects. I forget what we were talking about, but in terms of what we're sharing and what we're doing, we've shared quite a few of these. I think there's a lot more exciting stuff to come. The other part is, back to my MA Pay and Bermuda example. Countries and large organizations don't always move that quickly, right? Especially when you're looking at moving them to a public open infrastructure. So I think, those that are at the forefront are really, it's really exciting to see them, whether it's digital securities or payments or national projects or DeFi stuff. Like, it's good stuff. I can barely keep up with some of the ones that are coming up and who we're connected into and who we're sharing and talking about. But it's, there's a lot there for sure.
Cool. Yeah, speaking of governments and countries, everybody's always interested in CBDCs, and I think that has the Marshall Islands project been delayed? I
believe that they have run into delays with their economists. I don't have all the latest details on that. I know it wasn't a technical hang up. I think it was more how they were working more broadly.
Yeah, with the IMF or something, right? Or
yeah.
And there's been floating online, there's been, rumors of Brazil, and obviously I'm sure it's not like you're going to say anything about this, but is there anything coming up with CBDCs that we could know about, or are there any exciting things coming or anything like that?
Let's listen, like Algorand's open source technology. I think there's a number of different organizations and countries that are looking across the board at what they should be using for infrastructure and how they should be moving forward. I think that's another example. Like, they don't necessarily move fast. Banks have been around for, keep me honest, I don't know, 600 some odd years. Like, it's changing the way they do business and all the component pieces that you need to think about when you really shift a central bank model to be more efficient and more open and inclusive. There's a lot to unpack, no matter what country you are, how big or small your economy is. So, I think that's some time away, but there's definitely interesting things out. They're starting to talk about it. They're starting to test it. and we'll see what happens over the coming years. I don't have any specific news or names for you right now, unfortunately, but
fair enough.
I'm hoping more and more soon, right? Whether they're on Algorand or something else, like it's exciting. It'll be an exciting movement for all of us, I think, when that starts to happen more.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think really what we're talking about there is adoption, right? And whether or not that's adoption by a government entity or by private companies or businesses, or we're talking about use cases. Let me ask you from a marketing PR perspective, like how much does the Algorand, the technology company, want to be involved in pushing for more adoption? And is there a perception that marketing has to put out there in order for it to be acceptable?
What do you mean for marketing to put out there? Like what we have to share to make sure everyone knows
what you have to share so that everybody feels comfortable with the technology and how it works, and how partners use it too.
Oh yeah, sure. So I think, there's a lot, right? There's DevRel, like the DevRel team here is really focused on making sure that all the resources, like they do a really good job. And, it's not my wheelhouse for sure. I'm not a developer, but I do talk to a lot of people that are using Algorand, and I do hear consistently like the resources, the tutorials, the samples, like all that stuff they have on developer.algorand.org. It's like top notch and it's awesome, right? So I got to give hats off to our DevRel team. I think they do a really good job of making sure that people can easily get access. I know they're constantly working on how they empower people, and I know there's some great stuff coming down the pipe on that front. And it's through some of that organic conversation with the developer community, which I think you're starting to see pick up. I know we've had like a 10-fold increase just in people on our Discord channel that are building on Algorand, like just the developer channels in the past 6 or 8 months, maybe. And so I think we'll start to see that increase even more, especially with the new model of, writing it just as you would write in Solidity and deploy on the EVM, you write in Reach or Python and you deploy on the AVM on Algorand, like higher level languages to make developing smart contracts safe, easy, more straightforward, and then easily deploy them. Like, I think that's all really exciting. And those are the messages that we're leaning in and sharing out. And we'll start to do more on the developer side with this new model in place, and with upcoming releases. And, there's great stuff happening with the wallet, wallet integration with Wallet Connect. Like there's a bunch of partnerships and tooling that make like all this stuff really compelling. And that's what we need to do a better job of sharing out, with how easy it is to like leverage the tech to like do more stuff with, right? Yeah. I think the other thing on adoption is it's not just, this institution's doing that, or that application's doing that, or this group stood up this. It's also, what can people more broadly participate in? As you both know, you're involved. Like Algorand's got a really strong following and a really great community. I think almost every one of our followers and people that are part of the Algorand community are like really thoughtful about how they're engaged and why they're engaged here. We don't have a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. I think we have more people that are very deeply ingrained in what's going on at Algorand, and ways for them to participate, ways for them to and not just retweeting, right? Ways for them to participate in new yield and new earnings and new governance and new structures that sort of empower the community. And I think we're going to start to see more and more of that come up, which is great too.
I saw some folks online figuring out how to run a node, and there's no like community reward for that. It's just they want to be involved, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Let's talk about new projects though. So when new projects come on board, or there's 700, I think is the number that's tossed around, but I think it's much higher than that now, especially in the last 6 months. The engagement seems like it's much higher. Yeah. If there's a new project, at what point do they get in touch with the Algorand team? Is there like an ambassador that handles new projects, that kind of ushers people in and gives them the do's and don'ts? How does that process look?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways that people enter. Obviously, our DevRel team is super active in Discord as well, and in the forums there. So sometimes they'll come in through DevRel where someone needs some extra help. And I know that, the DevRel group is helping them, as well as some of the business solutions folks. And that might be, here's how I can help you build that smart, like, here's a way to think about building that. Or, hey, you're launching this particular type of asset, therefore you need KYC, or you need compliance, or you need a, regulated exchange in this part of the world, right? And that's where we are trying to make sure that all those pieces are connected, so that because it's not just, I think there's two parts of it, right? There's the tech. You'd have the tech, and the tech has to be better, faster, cheaper all the time, and it's got to be accessible, and you got to be able to build with it, and it's got to be like
safe,
stable, and all of those things, safe, all of that stuff, right? So it's tech. On the other side, you have to be set for success in whatever you're entering into. And that doesn't just mean like a bunch of people. That means like the infrastructure, like if you look at the secure, like we see a lot of digital securities on Algorand, those seem to be popping up quite a bit recently. And if you look at like digital securities, there's certain things you need, whether it's an exchange that can handle that, or KYC, or there's like different component pieces. And so aside from the tech, it's also, do you have that ecosystem where you have not just people, but you have all those pieces that make you set for success when you come to launch a product or a service in that community. And I know that's what our business solutions team is really focused on building up on building out, so that we have that. And I think we're starting to see that play out more and more as more and more partners and people get involved, like not just the infrastructure from a blockchain perspective, but like that whole, like what you need to be successful infrastructure is starting to come to life.
Yeah, speaking of regulation and infrastructure, with the recent infrastructure bill, and then everybody was getting worked up about some of the different things that were getting included in it. How does Algorand fit in that? If these types of regulations come, how are they, how are you preparing for it? Or like with Exodus doing their stock, they're tokenizing their stock, right, on Algorand. And that seems like kind of the exact thing that regulators are going to be trying to go after, correct?
Yeah. And I mean, they're doing it in a, they've got approval to do what they're doing. They're working with Securitize, who takes care of all the things they need to do as well. I think everyone in this space would agree what's at the heart of it is that the definition of who a broker is too broad, right? So I don't know how that ends up getting adjusted and course corrected. I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I also think that, if nothing else happened over the past 2 or 3 weeks while that was going on, the strength of the blockchain community was shown. I think there's also a lot of educating that's going on in DC right now, the difference between the tech and like a crypto asset, right? Like the difference between blockchain technology that can make payment infrastructure more efficient, or banking services more accessible to more people, versus, a coin that goes up and down in value for no real rhyme or reason, right? And so sort of pulling those two pieces apart. So, I mean, listen, we're an open source technology company. We've obviously got some interest in making sure that there's clarity, and that there's appropriate clarification as these things go along, and hopefully we'll see some of the conversations in Washington start to pay off.
Right. Is there like high level, like, does Silvio talk to Charles Hoskinson? Is there communication amongst different blockchain like leaders about this type of regulation and stuff like that?
There's a few, you guys probably already know this, but there's a few groups that have sort of collectively been leading some efforts down there. So, aside from lobbyists, there's also the GBBC, the Global Blockchain Business Association, that they've got an office down there. There's the Blockchain Alliance. There's the Digital Chamber of Commerce. And so I think a lot of people that are in this space are members of one or many of those organizations. And I think that those organizations have been helpful, and certainly have been helping to educate. I think there's an education gap down there for sure. So I think, coming together as an industry voice is important. And I hope that we can continue to do that with those that are making these decisions and writing up these laws and regulations for all of us to follow. But yes, it's tough. Technically, in the one that landed, right, isn't a, the definition of a broker could be like a developer that's doing something on blockchain, right? So that's got to be
clarification
sorted out at some point.
Clarification, yeah. Well, especially, yeah, because I guess, proof of stake people were worried about proof of stake being, there being certain regulations that would make it completely unusable, but it seems like that passed, right? Like that doesn't seem to be.
I think no amendments were passed, so I think there's work to be done. So we'll see. I was following it very closely, and I think I saw like there were like seven or eight different revisions, and in the end, I don't think any of them went through. So
yeah, none of them did. And then Senator Johnson came out and said that they didn't mean for it to affect this. So we'll see. Yeah.
But even that, like you go down, okay, so nobody likes proof of stake, but so does that mean they're all for proof of work? Like does the environmental conversation like go off the table? Like what?
I know it seems so silly. It's like, okay, so you guys have been talking about the environmental thing for so long, and now you're saying no proof of stake and proof of work is the one. Yeah, they don't. It does seem that there is a education gap, which I think people assume that, Congress knows what they're doing, or some people assume. And actually, I think very few people assume that. Never mind.
Fair enough.
But, okay. But I mean that there's a huge education gap, right? I mean, think about, I think Algorand was the first, and if not the first, I couldn't find anyone that went before us, but if you did, I apologize. But on Earth Day earlier this year, we came out and said we're carbon negative. And it's really cool how we're doing that, right? With climate trade, who's got a marketplace on the blockchain, and so not just what the network's using right now, but we're always going ahead, right? Like 100 nodes ahead of what's being used at a current point, so that we're always offsetting by more than what the network's taking up, and then we can do that because that's how small the footprint of the Algorand network is. But even I don't even know that people really understand that. Like that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, anyway. I appreciate the like that's a consistent focus with the whole hashtag green crypto. And that's been pretty strong and consistent. I'm an environmentalist as well, and that's one of the things that actually drew me to Algorand in the first place. Just that concern and the fact that it seemed like that concern was shared, and business practices actually backed that up. So
and a lot of the the ESG initiatives at some of these companies and with some of these countries, like it becomes important. I've had lots of conversations on that front, even with people in Massachusetts, and standing some stuff up around focused on Algorand, because that matters. Like it matters to companies, to the there's impacts all the way around for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the combined. Go ahead, Coop.
No. What I was going to say really was unnecessary.
Well, I was just going to add some commentary.
I was about to mention my plants, is what I was going to do. But anyways,
they look like they're keeping your air quality. Do you have now?
That's exactly
question
right.
On your plants? Do you have a Planet Watch air sensor?
Do you have Planet Watches? Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Oh man.
You gotta make sure, right? So we've got, because of our environmental friendliness, we actually have quite a few environmental use cases on Algorand. This is an Atmo tube from Planet Watch, which is one of the first blockchain spin-offs out of CERN, the research organization in Switzerland, which is CERN's a really big deal.
That CERN, yeah.
That CERN, that's right. So they Planet Watch is the first spin-off out of that, and they have these sensors. There's varying different ones. This is a smaller one. I think there's a couple of bigger ones. But it actually monitors your air quality. It sends the data back on a blockchain. And because I have one, I get access to like a whole database of air quality around the world. It's really cool. Like it's cool. Decentralizing like air, but the economic model, right? So I bought this. I'm contributing data back on the blockchain. And because I'm doing I'm in set, like you can earn planet tokens, and then you can have access to this data. So if I were, stuck somewhere with wildfires, I mean, it was interesting. We had, on the East Coast, we had some fall off from the fires on the West Coast. So, you can see some of the changes, and it's just, there are interesting use cases popping up.
Yeah. And I'm in Los Angeles, so we're constantly dealing with that, with wildfires. And smoke.
That's why you have the plants inside, isn't it?
That's why, well, yeah,
Right.
during COVID, like I filled this entire place up with plants. And my wife, she kind of led that charge, but that's anyways.
It's great.
Anyways,
that's great.
I'm sure everybody's very interested in my plant accumulation.
I'm impressed.
Let's talk about so earlier you said you were handed a 72-page white paper, and some of us have read some technical and some information, some of the more dense material that's put out from Algorand, but most of us have not. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes I read that stuff and I get a little bleary-eyed. So how difficult is for you, and what is your plan for, like, you're basically a Silvio translator, so you have to take some of that stuff and then put it into layman's terms, right, and make it palatable for everyone else and make it understandable.
First of all, no one can be a translator for Silvio because you have to listen to him. He is like, I refer to him as like the modern day godfather of cryptography.
Oh yeah,
like,
yes.
And it's super helpful to listen to him talk on blockchain, or where it came from, or why it is, or why his approach is that way. And there's plenty of recordings out there of him talking, despite the fact that there haven't been, real person events for quite some time now. Yeah. But the dense material, it's funny as some of this other stuff comes up, like, higher level languages that people can write in, or, proof that the tech is better, faster, cheaper, more stable, like all that stuff it's almost like people don't get in the weeds as they used to a couple of years ago, right? Like, I don't know if anyone else listened to The Block did a research report on the layer ones, and they had a couple of very smart technical people on there. And I mean, those guys, they can get technical so quickly, right? And the nuances between how the protocols are formed. But in the end, if you're looking to like launch your business or start something new or update your infrastructure or, improve your model to make it more efficient, like you're only going to go so deep, right? Like, because a lot of this stuff has been around for, a couple of years now. And so it's been proved out a little bit to some extent.
Yeah, and I think it's getting easier too to interact with. Like, I mean, just from the technical standpoint, there's a lot of roadmaps now. You can take what other people have done. There's enough open source out there that you can build upon.
That's right. And there's like different UIs and plugins that make that stuff more visible, right? So even if you can't get into the nuances of, I'm going to go and tap into that blockchain like directly through a node, like, there's block explorers, there's different wallets, there's different places you can sort of interface and look some of this stuff up, which I think it's great. I think it's a sign of how far the industry's come and where it's going.
So you mentioned, Silvio, and, having access to, his brilliance and watching, and, I've heard him on the Lex Friedman podcast and everything. I think like the news of the day, we're filming this 9 days before we're going to put it out for AlgoFest. But the news of the day is Cardano, and, it's like, $100 billion market cap, and Charles Hoskinson and his personality. And, he was on the Lex Friedman podcast, and he must have brought up Silvio and Algorand 3 or 4 times. Like, obviously there's mutual respect there. And I think a lot of people in the retail community, I know we kind of talked about this isn't your area, but are kind of like a little like an Algorand being like, man, this is Cardano's like this steamrolling thing that's happening, and they're getting smart contracts, and well, Algorand already has smart contracts. And I don't know, I think that like there's a little bit of confusion out there. And based on the questions that we've been provided, they want to know, is there like maybe opportunities for Silvio to be out there more, or, even have a conversation, since there is that mutual respect with Charles Hoskinson? Is there possibility for, public conversations with different blockchain leaders like him or Vitalik Buterin, or, stuff like that?
So for sure, for all those, first of all, you have to understand that, Silvio's a pretty busy guy. He has a research team here, right? He's working on several different things. There are a number of super smart people here. They are way, way smart. And so they're focused. They're focused on like making sure that what we're doing is future proofing whoever comes out and wants to use Algorand, right? Like, what's next? What does the tech need to do next? Like, what does it need to make happen? Is that compact certificates? Is that the atomic swaps, right? So they're looking at all of those things that are cryptographically necessary as blockchain sort of moves along, and what makes it safe and all of those things. So Silvio's insanely busy. Silvio does do quite a few speaking engagements. Obviously, it's been a little bit lighter in the time of no travel here. He was on stage in just before the world shut down, fall of 2019. Silvio was right. Is that
right?
Yeah, 2019. It's been a while.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, it's wild.
In the fall of 2019, Silvio and Vitalik were actually on stage together in Korea, and and had a chat, and that was literally almost just before the world shut down. So they have had that conversation. I know, Silvio and Charles Hoskinson do know each other. We haven't had the opportunity to put the two of them together. We should probably find some time at some point to make that happen, because that could definitely get fun. And then Steve was on with Emin from Avalanche and Anatoly from Solana like just last week. So I think those opportunities are always there. I think it's just a matter of aligning schedules. Everyone that's deep in this is so deep in this and gets busy. I know Charles is doing a lot of YouTube videos, which I think is great. And it's a matter of timing on Silvio's calendar.
Of course.
Good.
Yeah, I think if I do have the finger on the pulse of the community, I feel like people are kind of like, we believe in this tech, and it seems like everything is focused on it, which it should be. And they're just kind of like, is there opportunities for people to find out about this? Like, how do we, that's probably why, that's not probably why, that's why, the guys are organizing AlgoFest, and they wanted to talk to you. And it's like, how do we get this? How do more people learn about this amazing thing that we found, type of thing?
Yeah. And and we need to do more, right? We need to make sure that we're reaching out to developers, and that we're, not just talking to the echo chamber of Algorand, and that we're extending our reach. And I think you'll see more of that stuff coming. I think we'll start to spread our wings here over the coming months. And I think you'll start to see more of that through partnerships, through use cases, through some of the folks that are, building up and expanding the Algorand ecosystem. I think that's another thing worth pointing out. I know we've talked about a lot of different topics, but I think the other thing that people forget is how much support and funding is there for things that are being built on Algorand. I think my last count was like 600 or something million, $700 million worth of funding that has recently been poured into the overall Algorand ecosystem. So, I know there's other projects that have raised, hundreds of millions of dollars to make the tech better and build out the tech. Like, that's what Silvio and his research team are holed up doing. That's what our product and engineering team are doing. Like, there's a roadmap. We are hitting it. Like, we're continuing to pump this stuff out and get the tech out there. And I think that's awesome. But the funding that's pouring into the ecosystem, that's just started happening over the past couple months, right? And I think you'll see some more stuff on that front to just sort of extend our reach and sort of the partners and the people and the organizations that we bring in. And I think that'll start to get exciting, especially as that capital starts to get deployed to like build out some of these products and some of these offerings.
You're talking about like borderless capital, the Draper stuff, all the accelerators, the various
all the accelerators, the Arrington Fund with $100 million into Algorand. Like, there's more to come on that front, and I think that's what's getting really exciting, because anyone that wants to do anything, or anyone that wants to migrate off anything else to the Algorand ecosystem, like, there's plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, we just saw that migration happen, right? Smile just did that. They were were they the first ones to go from ETH to Algo?
Maybe in mainnet. I think you're going to see some more stuff coming, though.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Excellent. I like how you said maybe. Maybe, like, all right. We'll see how that goes. So, like, you can't tell us anything about an NDA, but how many NDAs exist, Kelly? Like, just roughly, like.
I don't even know. I don't know. I'm marketing, right? I'm not the business development team. They I can't even name names over there, but David Markley, you've got the team over there, you've got the team in Europe with Pietro and Federico, and it's a great group of people that really know blockchain, that really, they come from the DeFi space, they come from the banking space, traditional banking space, and they're almost like playing connector to all these pieces to bring them in, right? Like here's how your business could be made better. Here's the plugins we have for you. Here's the other component pieces in Algorand that have been built up. Like you could use that, white label that, and you could do this and then put this together. And here's how you could do it in a public, faster, better way. Right. And so, there's a lot of that going on. And I mean, it's a decent sized team that are working over there, and they're cranking through a lot of these conversations and just making sure that people are set for success.
I remember earlier in the year, Sean, he had mentioned there was big news coming, but there was an NDA stopping him from, did we find out what that was? Or is that still are we still waiting to hear what that is?
He shared, I think he was teasing out CI before CI. I don't remember which one you're talking about, but I think he was teasing out CI before CI became a real thing.
Right.
Because that was that was in some works for a while. Again, like some of these things that they take a while when they're working with a government, or they're backed by a ministry of the government, or these larger institutions that have been doing business the same way for tens, if not hundreds of years, right? So it gets a little different.
Yeah.
What are the biggest roadblocks from your perspective to that adoption that we were talking about earlier? What do we have to overcome?
It's a good question. Algorand specifically?
Yes.
It's a good question. I think, the funding is there, right? So people that want to build, there's plenty of funding opportunities. And if you need funding, like email me, right? Keli@algorand.com, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. Like there's tons of opportunity. So some of the funding is there. The infrastructure is getting there. The tech is definitely there. The deployment models, right? I know that there's another upgrade coming to the protocol that really turns on some other whatever's missing from smart contracts right now. So I think there's that coming, and that will unlock a lot of things. And I think it's reaching developers, right? I think that developers that are out there right now are very Ethereum based, and that's great. But there's tens of millions of developers in the world that haven't even started to come into the blockchain sphere. And so as we sort of go through our marketing activities, we'll be focused on maybe people that aren't even building blockchain applications yet, right? But that they could be or should be, or there's opportunities for them too. So I think as we reach out to those people, I think that's one of the hurdles to overcome, is just expanding our reach to new audiences.
Excellent. So, I mean, traditional sources for new projects, a place like Y Combinator, Silicon Valley, there's these hotspots, at least in the U.S. Do you think there's going to be a transition from just these blockchain accelerators to just startup help, like how mainstream?
It's a really good question, because it's a really good question, especially when you're tapping into some of this community stuff that's already sort of there and developed, right? And funding, like that's, why would you go to Y Combinator today? Like, what are the reasons? Is it
you want advice? You want to, I don't know, somebody else?
I don't know. No, I'm just asking, like, is it funding and network help, right?
I would assume so. Yeah, and advisors, right?
Right. So as you see, so I think, like, if you were going to come and launch something, like, you have a lot of that built into these communities on these different blockchains, right? And as some of the interoperability stuff opens up, like, that just expands further. So, it's a pretty welcoming group of people, no matter what blockchain community you're in. So, I don't know. I think that the model could change for sure, especially when you look at, governance and decentralized ways of voting on what should get funded versus what should not. Like, there's definitely some interesting models that could come into play over the coming years, for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Do you have any how that's
So
going to
the
be,
wallet,
how the wallet just got an upgrade, correct?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it's in the store now. I don't think it's come out. I think it's totally there like sometime by the end of this week. And that's the
Got it.
connection with the Wallet Connect, right? Or by the time this airs, I think it'll be out and fully there.
Okay.
And the wallet, you know, super clean, super slick, super easy way to interact with the blockchain for sure. And there's tons of stuff that can be done there. The governance is run by the foundation. I know that they have some updates again by the time this comes out. I think they'll have some new stuff up, and I know they've already started to share out more about governance. You know, from their CEO and from their economist Massimo over there, have been giving this stuff a lot of thought. But effectively, from the way I understand it, you know, Algorand almost becomes a DAO by the time this stuff goes live in October. I think October was the time frame. So it's all good questions for the foundation. I hope you have someone on here from the Algorand Foundation that can help answer that stuff. But I think the governance stuff that's coming from Algorand, the foundation, is I think that'll start to get really exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of folks very interested in what's going to happen come October and, you know, throughout the rest of Q4, really.
Yeah. And there's lots of opportunity too, right? For projects, for individuals, for, you know, token holders, for people participating in that. It's it could be very impactful for sure.
Excellent. I think we got about 3 more minutes here, 3.5 more minutes.
3.5 more minutes here. Let's see. Oh, they wanted, we got a question about Miami coin, and there seemed to be, during the Bitcoin conference, there seemed to be, you know, I think they announced, what was it? Borderless Capital announced a fund in Miami, and then there was some advertising in Miami for Algorand. And, you know, I think people were like, gee, why didn't we get Miami coin? Like, why did Bitcoin get it? You know, that small project Bitcoin, like why, you know, so I don't know. I don't even know what I'm asking, but they were wondering why, or was it the plan to hopefully have Miami coin built on Algorand and it just didn't work out? Or
no, I don't think there's listen, I think Miami has a lot going for it, for sure. I think, you know, the Borderless team is down there. I think they've relocated their offices down there. I know we have a lot of people that are looking at Algorand and building on Algorand. They've got a really healthy startup scene down there. I know Borderless is there to help fund some of that. Like, they really believe in the city and how they're making it open and how they are attracting people that want to build on blockchain. Mayor Suarez is doing great things down there. And yeah, we did a cafecito chat with him. We've been to his offices for sure. I think there's lots more to come on the Miami front in terms of, you know, where Miami or where any city or any state in the US takes blockchain adoption and usage. And there's any number of, you know, use cases there. I mean, payments is one, but there's record keeping. There's all kinds of stuff that could be done on blockchain. So more to come. And I don't know, but, you know, I think, I think you'll see some Algorand stuff in Miami at one point or another.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we sign off and say thank you?
This is my chance. Okay.
This is
US
your chance. Here we are.
No, listen, I think there's a lot of great stuff going on at Algorand. I know everyone wishes that, you know, there was always more, right? I think, but we've seen a lot of more of the institutional adoption, more of the payments adoption, more of the national project adoption. We're starting to see some pretty exciting stuff when it comes to digital securities, right? Where people want to balance the transparency and inclusivity with the blockchain stuff. You know, whether it's Bridge Tower doing a $200 million digital security, you've got Republic. The Republic note is about a $63 million digital security. Exodus is a little over 700 million. Like, these are not insignificant things that are happening on Algorand. And I'm not even getting into the payments, like the B Next and the MA Pays, and like that. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in payments that are coming onto Algorand in the near future. But in addition to that, you know, I think there's the DeFi movement on Algorand is about to become a reality. I know that you all are talking to Tiny Man. I think Khan has a great thing going there. Sam over at yldy, you know, there's there's awesome Seb. I'm sorry, Seb. The yldy team, and there's AlgoFi, there's AlgoDex. There's some really, really strong DeFi that I think, you know, they're working in testnet right now. Venue One is another one. So I think there's a lot of great stuff that's come in the DeFi space, in just sort of the DeFi applications on Algorand. And I think that that's sort of the next exciting thing to happen. I know a couple of them have been accepted into the DeFi Accelerator program, which I'm so excited for them. And I think, you know, I think that'll be a fun little corner of the Algorand ecosystem to watch over the coming quarter or two.
Yeah. I love all that stuff. I love the DeFi stuff. I also love the real estate. There's a ton of real estate activities.
We didn't even talk about real estate.
We didn't talk about Lofty
another one last week.
Yeah,
yeah. Those guys, the Lofty AI, we got to give them a shout out, because I think they've done like 6 or 7 opportunity, but the last one sold out in like 8 minutes or something, and it's all tokenized equity, real estate equity on Algorand. I mean, it was 8 minutes they sold this property.
It was ridiculously fast. By the time I logged in,
like they distributed
the
the
next property was already advertised. I messaged him. I was like, did I miss it? What happened?
But it's a great model. I mean,
and we didn't talk about,
you know what was the minimum on that? Like $50, I think.
$50, yeah.
$50, yeah.
That is pretty
accessible.
cool. That's a pretty cool way of, can you imagine what's another scenario where you could get access to a real estate exposure to a real estate asset for $50? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And we didn't touch on Folks Finance. Folks is coming up and doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opulus. We didn't discuss Opulus.
Yeah.
What were we even talking about?
Oh man.
No, I think people forget like how much is actually happening in the Algorand ecosystem, because it's not, you know, boom out of the gate. You know, there's $1 billion locked up right there. Like, I think, again, back to my original comments when we started this thing, like these companies that are building here have like long-term vision for like what success means and what their business model is. And, you know, that some of these models don't turn overnight, right? So I think all this stuff that we've sort of rattled around for the past 5 minutes, like it's really impactful. And I think we'll keep seeing more and more of that on Algorand. I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm. I think the bottom line is there's a lot more to come, and the best is yet to come still.
Totally.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, well, Keli, I appreciate you. Coop, I'm glad we got to do this joint co-hosting thing. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah,
we're going to have Keli back for AlgoFest 2022.
I appreciate it. We shouldn't wait until 2022 to do it. We should, like, there's so much. I mean, you guys have far more interesting people to talk to than me. I totally understand that. But there are some cool things coming up, even from a marketing perspective. And, you know, we can, we get to a point, we talk about branding. We can talk about different Twitter strategies. We can talk about different partnerships. We'll have some good stuff to talk about over the next couple months.
Well, let's do it. We'll do it again.
All right, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for watching AlgoFest 2021.